Hey everyone, it's Frederick Kramer here, and in today's video, I don't know if I'm going to title the video this way, but I want to cover the fastest way to get any amount of predictable appointments for your agency, whatever high-ticket business, even if you have no systems right now. If you have systems right now that predictably generate appointments really quickly, just hire someone, document your exact process. I think I already made videos on how to do that, and then you just find people that can run that for you. But if you don't have this, I'm going to go over this, and I already covered this process here in a bit of a different manner in a previous video, but I found something recently that can actually make this even quicker and improve it even more. So basically what you want to do is you build a process for systematically testing what works best. Because in order to get something predictably, you must have tested it before. Very first principle, right? So you need to have, basically it's a game of statistics, right? So you need to have a certain proven test with a large enough volume of people. It could be cold calling, it could be DMs, it could be email, it could literally be anything. The only difference there is the numbers, but in first principle it's exactly the same thing. And if you have a system that shows you that you get bookings in a profitable way, so in a KPI, which is basically just determining that the inputs that you put into the system lead to enough outputs for you to scale it, then you can just hire other people or use automation, depending on the context, to run that system. And you can hire as many people because it's profitable and you can pay them enough so that they want to run it for you. Or just use software because it's profitable and still make enough of a profit. And do that, like basically duplicate the system as often as you want, for the amount of appointments that you want. Now, obviously, you cannot get any amount. Like you probably couldn't get like 1 million appointments a month or something. But I don't know that many people that actually need that to scale to their goals, right? So, yeah, it's obviously there's a limit, right? You might not be able to scale to like 9 figures or 10 figures to this or something, or become a billionaire. But besides that, there's really no limit. Like you just need to duplicate the process. But obviously, the main game is, how do you actually get something that works, right? So what you want to do, and this is a repeating process. So you formulate a hypothesis, namely you find something, you basically guess what could be working. So let's say, for example, when I set up a DM system for one of my clients, I say, okay, this is our messaging, this is their offer, I'm going to put this together, I'm going to make another video here, and that is my sort of messaging. I'm going to guess and see how that's going to work, right? Which is step number 2, test hypothesis. 3 is observe the results. So after a few days, depending on what specific thing I'm testing, once I have enough of volume, I'm going to say, okay, what does this look like? And then I can see, okay, like this data thing is okay, positive reply rate is okay, this is okay, but bottom, like appointment booking rate is not that good. Okay, where's the bottleneck? And then I can say, okay, this is the thing that isn't working. So then I will iterate this and basically improve that from there, and just improve that. So to have it very, very high level, or this was high level, this is a bit more specific. So what you want to do, depending on your process, you want to define what sort of metrics you have and what the KPI would be. So if you were to use Instagram, for example, there would be a media seen rate, like how many, or like LinkedIn, like any social outbound thing, like how many people see your message. On email, this will basically be your open rate. On cold calling, this might be the, I don't know how you call that, like the hang up rate, like the people taking your calls when you call them. I forgot how this is called in English, but yeah. So you have that. Then you define, and the KPIs for that. So basically, like how much, like what percentage of people need to book a call for this system to be good enough. On social outbound, this will be like 2%, 3% appointment booking rate. Obviously, you could go higher, but as soon as you're at like 2%, you can definitely scale, and you can pay people to run your system on a pay and results basis as well, because you can just give them a process that is proven to work. They just need to execute this. You give them the training, so it's literally predictable, and that's why you can still do that on a pay and results basis, and people will do it, right? And by the way, for not that much, because you have a good process, you don't need to pay people like thousands of dollars or something to get to a little result. Because it's predictable, you can get a lot of margin from there because you built the process yourself, right? That's the main difference. But you do that, and you also do that for the metrics in between. So if you want to know like some exact numbers here, then obviously let me know in the comments, but I don't want to make this video too long for people who don't care about this. But what you do after that is you define the key variables. So basically for each metric in between, there's going to be a combination of variables, sometimes like 15, sometimes 7, sometimes 2, sometimes 1 variable that affect how well this works. So for example, if you have the stage from I sent the people my calendar link or my whatever other calendar link to they booked an appointment, the variables could be how much availability do you have, how many days do you schedule in advance, how many questions do you have in the booking for, what are those questions, how quickly do you send that link to the people, and what is the messaging you have to that link. I think there's were like 6, 7 variables. I don't know exactly, but yeah, like every single thing is going to have an impact. So for example, if you have more questions, it's higher friction, people are less likely to book a call. On the other hand, if they booked a call, it's more likely that they show up because they have, invested a little bit more. Literally just time answering questions, but it makes a difference. And yeah, and also the same thing applies for calendar days in advance. If you have more days, it's easier for people to find a time that works. But also, the further their schedule ahead, the less likely it is that they show up because they could just forget the call, right? A lot of things like that, but basically for each step you need to define the variables. Then you establish the sample size, so how much stuff do you need to see that it's proven. Could be 100 messages for seeing the media seen rate. Usually it's like 30 times in the previous stage. So 30 times calendar link sent and people saw the message to bookings, right? So if you have 30 people that you send a calendar link to, from the total volume that led to those 30 times, you can also establish the booking rate. Yeah. Then you establish how long this should be taking. So basically, like how long would you take to do all of this for the test for the volume? Just estimate. Give like a date range, check on the first date of that date range, and then check again, And also the latency. So if you message someone today, how long could this take until they actually book a call? Could be 2 weeks, could be a month, depending on the system. And yeah, all of that. Then you basically check that nothing is there to basically like make sure that there are no hidden variables that you didn't account for. Then you create the variables. Then you establish what you don't change, which is basically for future things. Then you just run the test. Then you just see for each metric, okay, how well did this work? And then you decide, okay, what is the most important variable to move on? And also how much do I need to modify this? So for example, a metric of you could be like heavily off and you're like, okay, like I need to change, what do I need to change? Okay, I need to change this and I need to change this a lot. But you could also be in a scenario where it's not far off, just like a little bit. So you would just like modify this a little bit, right? Then you track that again and repeat from step 1 until KPI. Now, this is a thing that I've already discussed in a previous video. I just wanted to recap this because a few people that watch this video don't know that or like didn't have this in mind, probably at the beginning. So this is literally just how you get to proof of concept, right? The only thing is time, because you have a systematic process, and like even if nothing on the platform works, you might just take a different platform, right? Even if nothing from like that one variable works, you might change the whole process or something. But you must be super disciplined at having, obviously you need to know like what sort of numbers these are, but then you just need to create your variables, make them as good as possible for each test, and then guess and see what's going to happen, right? And then you're just going to improve what needs to be improved, and it usually isn't that hard to do. Now, how did you do this the fastest way? Because this is just the way, but there are ways to make it quicker. Now, obviously, one way, shameless plug, you could just go to someone like me or somebody else that has the experience doing this and they could just do it for you. This will take almost no time from you at all, but provided you don't do that, another thing that you can do is basically just steal another system that you know is already working and then just put your offer into that. But if you don't know that, then the fastest way to do this is, and I was already saying, if you don't have a proven process, you might not want to hire someone to do that, but this is going to make it quicker. Why? Because you can send more volume without you being available. Because you're probably fucking busy. Like, you don't want to be sending DMs, doing cold calls all day long just to find a proven process. If you're already working with clients, you're already taking sales calls, you just want to have a proven process, right? So if you have this, you want to make sure that like someone else can do the tests for you, but you still decide what the tests are, Like, for example, if you have done cold calling before and you got to like, I literally yesterday I spoke to someone that had like a 1% booking rate on cold calls, which is, it's something, but it's not good to scale that. But you could literally just find someone and have them run the test for you. And basically, obviously you need to train them a little bit, but you could just have people, train them to run that, and with that you have like way more volume to get to results way quicker. Now, obviously, two caveats or like two things with this. Obviously, some people might just not want to run a process where they know 100% that it's going to work. I've been able to do this because I had systems in the past that already worked, and I changed a little bit and then gave them to other people to run that. But you need to, like, you just need to find people that want to make some money from that, and you can tell them, like, I already have a proven process that gets results, and then you just test with them to make it better, which is for them sounds great, right? Because you're literally improving the efficiency of, like, basically how much money they can make per hour with this, right? And then you just have them run the process, and then you just see the results as well, and then you do this process, right? So basically, the whole process, like, you do everything but actually doing the testing. And the testing is what really takes the time, right? Observing the variables takes maybe like 5 minutes or something. Deciding what to improve next might also take 5 minutes. And then improving the variables might take you an hour or two. And same thing for the beginning, might take you like an hour. Maybe two, but not much more. Like, it doesn't take you much time. And if you want to get to this like really quickly, you can even have more people running this. Same thing could also work for email. Like, on email, you obviously wouldn't delegate that because you can literally just automate that. I'm not aware of things to automate things like cold calling right now. And yeah, people always tell you like, yeah, you can automate stuff, but then you see how the system is actually operating, and you see like it does like a fair share amount of things wrong still. Maybe AI gets better in the future, I don't know, but generally speaking, that's usually what happens. But on email, you could just say, okay, I'm going to buy a lot of accounts, and I'm going to run like with very high volume, and I'm going to just see what happens, because then you can just make these tests like a lot quicker. Main problem on email is just going to be the latency, because on email you have a lot more latency, and basically you're done running a test, but you still need to wait for the results. And in the meantime, yes, you could be sending more, but it's not going to help you much because you're already at a good amount, and you just need to wait till the results to then make a decision to then do the next test. But if you do something like cold calling, where the results are literally instant, it's maybe a few days to like follow up with people that didn't like take the call from them. But I think you say take up anyway. So you see the difference, right? So the main thing is follow this process. Formulate something. If you already have a process, this is going to be your version 1, so to say. If you have a proven process, you literally just need to basically then you just need to scale it, right? But if you you can get something, then you can test this, but you don't test it by yourself, but you document the process. If you've done it to a degree in the past, then you can show other people the process. Obviously, you need to have a little bit of skill, but the main thing that's going to make or break this is the actual variables, right? It's the actual, what do people say at the beginning of the cold call, and how do they say it, right? There's not that much skill. Yes, you can improve that. Yes, you can improve your objection handling, but especially with things like DMs or something like that, or like handling email replies, there's not that much that you can be good or bad at. Especially if you have objection rebuttals stored somewhere in a text form where people can literally just copy paste them, right? Which is also another variable of your process. So with all of these things, you can just have other people run the test. You can have loads of people run the test. You're going to be a lot quicker in testing. So each test is not going to take you 3 weeks to run or 4 weeks. So basically, if you take 8 versions, it's not going to take you 8 months. But if you have, for example, 4 people running that, and you can afford that to a degree, then it's going to take you just 2 months. And if you're thinking, well, but I don't have that much money to do this, you remember that you just need to pay people once they actually book a call, right? It's not nearly as expensive as you might think, especially when they obviously it depends on how much volume you can afford, but to not do the test by yourself, you might just spend $200 a month or something for someone to do this part-time. That's just really happy to make some money, get some experience, especially because most of the people at the beginning do it for the experience and not necessarily because they can make a lot of money. You just say to them, yeah, for the beginning it's $200, or if you book more calls, then it's going to be more. I can help you improve that part, right? And that's just going to like be more effective for them. Like it's actually not that expensive. It's going to save you a lot of time. And in my case, for example, this allows me to have this running for multiple clients at a time, get multiple clients at a time in KPI, test all of that, but without me sending like manually like thousands of DMs each and every single day, or like emails or cold calls, right? So that's really cool. That's basically how the process works. If you have any sort of questions, then drop them below in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.